Magandang hapon, or good afternoon. Welcome back to the Philippines. In this video, I want to discuss whether it is worthwhile for the average computer user to switch operating systems or to continue using their current one. Your OS could be going obsolete, and the next version may or may not run on your hardware. You might be tired of needing proprietary, customized, expensive hardware for your OS. You might be tired of your OS provider monitoring everything you are doing. Or you might just have an itch you have not been able to scratch. Regardless, there are a lot of reasons, and there are a lot of reasons not to change your OS. I don't want to lead anybody down a primrose path. Changing your OS is a big deal, and don't let anybody tell you it isn't. A total switch from one OS to another is not the only option out there either. For example, I myself dual boot between Windows and Linux on my laptop. I know that's not for everybody, but it works for me. Although I've been thinking of the way things are going, pretty much pushing Windows out, but we'll see where that leads. Believe it or not, the OS itself is not a reason to switch. With few exceptions, most tasks can be performed regardless of the OS you're running. Rather, it comes down to several personal factors. Your individual experience, your willingness to get out of your comfort zone, what one is willing to put up with from the OS manufacturer, how one feels about making decisions. This is both a simple and a complex question. And many Linux, Mac, and Windows advocates are probably not going to like the next statement, but for 75% of the users out there, it does not matter what OS you are actually using. So here's an interesting statistic. Linux is probably the most used operating system in the world, even though it only holds approximately 4% of the desktop market. Before too many people start taking umbrage at that statement, let me qualify it. I am not strictly talking about computers. The majority of non-computer smart devices are running Linux in one form or another. Then there's Android and Chrome OS, while one can argue the fact they are technically based on Linux. Large numbers of servers on the internet also run Linux. One can even argue that Mac runs Unix under the hood, which is very similar to Linux. But when it comes to personal computers, it's a very small percentage running Linux. The fact remains that the majority of computers are running some version of Microsoft Windows. This is approximately 72% of the market. The majority of these systems, about 70%, are running Windows 10, which is going end of life in October of 2025. That's about 50% of the desktop market. When this happens, end users will have a few options, but they're going to have to make a decision. Continue as before, running an unsupported OS, meaning no more security updates. If your computer meets the requirements, you could upgrade to the next version of Windows. If not, you could buy a new computer. You could pay Microsoft for a security update. Prices go up each year, and I believe this might be a business option only. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. Or you can ditch Windows altogether. Full disclosure, I lean towards the fifth option for most cases. You do have choices. Go Mac with its proprietary hardware and OS. You should be prepared to have Apple instead of Microsoft looking over your shoulder. And understand the cash investment for a new Mac system, because you also need to buy new hardware. On the other hand, you could choose Unix/Linux route and use your existing hardware. So let's determine if you are a candidate for switching, or if you should consider one of the options for staying with your current OS. Note, this is personal computers. If you're using a business computer, you might be stuck with whatever your business decides, in which case you're probably not the one paying for it, so it doesn't really matter. Some might consider this a funny way to start a series on switching from Windows to Linux, but I do not want anyone to proceed under false pretenses. Switching, in spite of what some would say, is a big deal, and almost never a smooth experience. So what I will be doing is a classic switch example, installing Debian Linux on an underpowered 10-year-old laptop that was designed for Windows 8 or Vista, I forget which. specifically an ASUS transformer. More details about that in a future video. Probably going to be some low-level stuff, as I will be using a Windows Manager for the GUI. Again, underpowered. However, before I get that far, I want to talk about preparing for a switch, which comes in two parts. First part, mainly backing up your important data that you want to save. And the second part is checking if applications on the proposed OS meet your needs and requirements. And depending on a few factors, I hope to finish up with installing a Linux desktop on a new or fairly new laptop, which has plenty of muscle to run all the fancy stuff. Okay, I think that's about it for this video. It's going to be a shorty. In this video, I've tried to keep things at a fairly high level, and I may have scared off a few people. I'd rather do that than give anyone the impression that switching is easy, but there's a small group of us out there who will embrace the challenge, and hopefully not too small a group. Subject matter for this next couple of videos will be about doing your research and preparing for the switch, aka checking out applications, backing up data. After that subject matter, we will be installing Linux on the old laptop. This will probably be going to be more of a low-level how to use Linux series, as I plan to cover a lot of command line items in this. We'll see how it goes. And assuming that all goes well, I want to install Linux on a much newer laptop. Actually, Linux as the only primary driver on a newer laptop, not a dual boot. And of course, there's going to be a few other subjects as they come up in the video sprinkled into the mix. I have not finished with Proxmox yet. I still have a few articles to go there, but I wanted to get started on this series. Okay, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time.